On the 4th of July of each year, Americans of all colors gather at local parks and backyard barbecues to celebrate our nation's independence. On that day, we commemorate the day the Declaration of Independence was ratified. The fact that slaves and freedmen fought for this country is not widely publicized, nor is it taught in our schools. Promised freedom after the war, many freedmen fought along our founding fathers for their own emancipation. Freedmen like Crispus Attucks are widely credited with being the first people to die for this country. Were these slaves rewarded for their deeds? No. They were put back in chains and forced to toil for the country and the founding fathers that promised them their freedom. First, I'm going to talk about some dubious assertions made in the Declaration of Independence. Then I'll cover the signatories of the Declaration of Independence. And then finally, I'll talk about when African Americans were finally gained their freedom. The Declaration of Independence dubiously asserted that all men were granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can a slave be called equal to a white man when just years after the Revolution, they counted as 3/5 of that same person? Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, at one point in 1817, according to the Smithsonian Magazine, owned 140 slaves. In total of his lifetime, he owned 600 slaves, many of whom were truly were emancipated after he died. But while he lived and after he wrote those precepts, he still continued to own slaves. He fathered 7 children with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings. The author of the Declaration of Independence was at best disingenuous and at worst a hypocrite. The American people themselves were committing the same infractions against slaves that they accused the British of committing. However, not all of the founding fathers were hypocrites. Some did not let the social climate of the time define them. One man had higher morals than most. Of the 56 signatories to the Declaration of Independence, William Whipple was the only one to free his slave before war broke out. At the time of the American Revolution, General Whipple was the representative from New Hampshire and the brigadier general of that state's militia, according to Jenny Vaughn, the executor of his estate. While preparing to leave for battle, General Whipple called to his slave, Prince, and said, "Prince, we have to prepare to fight for our nation." Prince replied, "Sir, I have no freedom to fight for." This stirred him. At that point, he freed Prince and said, "Let us ride into battle together as freedmen to fight for our freedom." Prince followed General Whipple into every major engagement in which he participated. Prince Whipple can be seen in the famous portrait of Washington crossing the Delaware, holding one of the oars on General Washington's launch. Even though thousands of African slaves fought and died for this nation's independence from British rule, it would be close to 2 centuries before precepts in the Declaration of Independence came to fruition for them. It took 191 years, 9 months, and 8 days for African Americans to gain what everyone else gained on July 4th, 1776. Let me say that again. 191 years, 9 months, and 8 days to gain what everyone else gained on July 4th, 1776. The Emancipation Proclamation, enacted on January 1st, 1863, freed slaves in fugitive states only, states in which the federal government had no control. The slaves in border states or neutral states were still in bondage. However, because the proclamation did not apply to them, it took 2.5 years for all the states to abolish slavery on June 19, 1865. The American government had yet to prescribe those unalienable rights to these newly freed African Americans. It took the Civil Rights Act of 1964, enacted on July 2nd, for African Americans and minorities of all colors for that matter to receive equal education, housing, and voting rights. Now let's wrap up what I spoke to you about today. The Declaration made some dubious assertions, how we were all created equal, and how we all were granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, who is widely regarded as the father of freedom and democracy, himself owned slaves, making him America's biggest hypocrite. General Whipple was the only one of the 56 signatories of the Declaration of Independence to free his slaves. It took close to 2 centuries for African Americans to truly be free. Perhaps as a nation, we should show some solidarity and celebrate June 19, 1865, or July 2nd, 1964 as Independence Day, because it was on those days that we were truly free. Thank you.